Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Big Blonde and Beautiful, the podcast. If you're new here, my name's Kara, and each week I pick a piece of media and I talk about the frat representation in it, and I talk about whether or not I think it's positive or negative. This week, we're going to be talking about Shallow Hal, and I have a guest with me, Victoria Voos. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit to the listeners?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Victoria, but I go by Fly for a Ginger online. I post about plus size fashion, some body positivity. I also talk about my struggles with psoriasis and PCOS as well. So it's a happy, inclusive space, and we are just we have a great online community there. So come on aboard.
So I'm curious, what made you decide you wanted to be a content creator?
I had a friend who just told me one day, you could be an influencer. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, no, you could. And I said, okay. And then from there, nothing could stop me. I took classes and just learned the things that I felt like I needed to know to be a content creator and influencer, because you don't know what you don't know. So the goal was, how do I grow my platform and how do I work with brands? Because the idea was to just go from, fun, silly posts to actually turning it into like a side hustle, a job. And for that, you kind of need to know what goes into it. So just learning how to turn it into another stream of income. And I took a lot of courses from Brianne Huntsman, who's now like a really good friend of mine, but she had a lot of great courses at the time.
What's been the hardest and the best part about being a plus size influencer?
I'd say the hardest part is, especially being over a size 24, the opportunities are a lot less in the fashion space. So diversifying what you talk about, having different niches, has been helpful. Like I mentioned, I talk about my psoriasis, and so I've gotten brand partnerships because of that. It feels very competitive because there's so few options, and a lot of people will happily take free clothes. Like, no shade, I totally understand that, but then that doesn't motivate companies to pay. So that has been the most difficult. And then what was the other part?
What's the best thing that's come out of being a plus size influencer?
The best thing I would say is the friendships that I've made online and in real life. I have actually all of my friends that I meet in person have been from online. Sometimes they slide into my DMs and they're like, hey, I'm in San Diego too. And then we hang out. Or sometimes it's because I've gone to an event or I've hosted an event and meet people that way. And then of course I have, friends online that are in my DMs or that I DM. So it's been really cool being able to expand my community online, because it can feel very isolating when you're a plus size person and you don't have your plus size people around you. So that has been super rewarding, and especially for me, but also so I could give back to the community as well.
Yeah, my platform is still small, but I definitely I've been trying to take control of my For You page and stuff, making sure I follow creators that have similar goals or just that look more like me, because it can just be a lot. So that's been very helpful for me. So
I think that's really good for mental health too, being able to see your body a whole lot more, seeing you represented and curating and being very thoughtful about what you're surrounding yourself with online. So I totally agree with that method. I try to do the same.
We got talking, Victoria and I forgot to give you guys a synopsis, because normally I'm like, hey, go take the time, watch the movie. Not in this case. To be honest, I don't blame you if you don't want to watch it. So I'll give you a little synopsis about Shallow Hal. The story revolves around Hal, played by Jack Black, who, taking his dying father's advice, states only the embodiments of female physical perfection. But that all changes after Hal has an unexpected run-in with self-help guru Tony Robbins. Intrigued by Hal's shallowness, Robbins hypnotizes him into seeing the beauty that exists even in the least physically appealing women. Lovely. So, our movie this week.
Woo!
Shallow Hal.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie before?
I remember that I had seen it before, not in it, like remembering it in its entirety. So I went and watched it again, and it's uncomfortable. It's really cringe.
Yeah, this was my first time watching it and my last time. I appreciate
Yeah.
you taking the time to go through that experience again.
What was your initial thought after watching it for the first time?
When I first started this podcast, I looked up a bunch of like movies with fat representation, and I came across this one. And so I kind of like saw pictures and stuff and like a trailer. So I knew I wasn't going to like it right off the bat. Yeah. And watching it just solidified that I do not like this movie. It's horrible. It has so many, like, I'm not even going to call them jokes, just fat comments or whatever. It's
the tropes and stereotypes perpetrated in this, and it was totally acceptable for its time, and it, from my understanding, did really well at the box office when it came out. Yeah, so we're watching it in a very different landscape, and where people have recognized that Victoria's Secret doesn't like fat people. But back then, Victoria's Secret was all the rage, and there was no problem with their sizing in store and their angels that walk the runway.
Yeah, it's definitely a product of its time, and it should stay there.
Yes.
Please and thank you.
But there was an underlying message, though, and it was like, what, Tim Robbins, Tony Robbins, who was saying like, he's saying like, this is a product of your environment. Like, no one's born disliking anyone. You've just been conditioned this way. So it was a terrible delivery system, but I feel like the underlying message was good.
Yes. I think the underlying message was at least accurate. Like, you're not born being hateful or discriminating against certain body types or races or anything like that. It's something that you learn from seeing other people do it and from media you consume in society. But I to be honest, I think Tony Robbins was probably the best part of this whole movie. And so, and I also read that apparently Jack Black had to like lose weight for this role too. Yep. I was like,
ironically. And I think the most ironic part of the movie is that him and his friend, kind of like the two main characters in the movie, aren't all that, like, generally, normally attractive. Like, they're not short, they're, not fit. One of them's balding. So it's really interesting that they went that angle with it.
I also think it shows the audacity of men, of straight
mediocre men.
Yeah, who think that, like, I can look however I want, but my girl has to have this, 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 and this. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not realistic.
It does circle around, at least for the one character, that it was from his insecurity with himself. And I think there's truth to that for some people, definitely paired with the conditioning of, being in this society that upholds, Western beauty standards or what have you. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. Like, even where Jack Black, Hal says, that guy has a halo, and she's like, no, it's his psoriasis. It's just like, y'all really brought everything.
They're like, we're gonna make fun of any flaw we can find, like flaw, And
then the ickiest part for me was the children.
The children.
They have children in like the burn unit, and when he's like under the spell, like they're, beautiful children. And then,
Mhm.
that's when he like realizes, oh, the inside beauty and what, yeah, yada, yada. But it was just like, it was icky watching it, knowing that they're going to show and imply that this child is unattractive.
Yeah, children are just children.
Yeah.
Like, and I also think, again, delivery horrible, but I also think it shows how we as people view other people's bodies and how they look as something for us to consume.
Mhm.
And that's like, I wish that that was so different, or
Right.
something to comment on also. I'm like,
Mhm.
sometimes, even though like I'm a fat influencer and sometimes I'll post about that, sometimes my posts are just me in a cute outfit and people
Right.
still feel the need to be like, you're a whale or whatever.
Right.
So I'm like, we don't always have, like, people's bodies are not there for you to, like, I don't know, enjoy or criticize or anything like that. They
No,
just
yeah.
exist.
People hold their own opinion in too high of a regard and have the audacity to like use their actual fingers and type a comment at saying like you're gross, and it's like, I don't live for your enjoyment.
Yeah, exactly.
You do not matter here. Go away.
Yeah, I'm like, that's great. Now you've commented and you're going to see more of my stuff. How about don't comment?
Mhm.
And then you won't have to see it anymore. You could even block me. I don't care. Block me. That's fine.
That's the sweetest
So,
karma, really, is that
yeah.
you're playing into the social media algorithm of if you participate and engage with this content, you're going to see more of it. So
Mm-hmm.
cry about it.
Yeah. Also, my hair ties just broke. So we're just gonna.
It's a mayhem podcast today.
Yes, it is. I swear this is not the normal. What were we talking about before I said
We
that?
were talking about men feeling the need to comment on
Oh,
how
yeah.
attracted they are to someone when it literally does not matter.
Basically, that's the whole movie, especially with Hal's friend. He
Mm,
makes so many comments. I'm
yeah.
like, sir,
Well,
if you're.
even how like the way he initiates a conversation with this supposedly like thin, beautiful women is commenting on the underwear she's looking at, and it's so inappropriate and so gross. And
Mhm.
um, you see how he is so obsessed with her body throughout the whole thing, even when at the end like he accepts or I guess realizes that she's beautiful. It's like, well, he's still probably going to objectify her after this.
Yeah. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, even though he's seeing her as thin, the amount of times that he comments on her body,
Right.
like even if I was thin, I'd be uncomfortable. And knowing that she's actually fat, I would think that he was fetishizing
Right.
me. Like
No.
that's the first thing that would
He just
pop into
really
my
needs
head.
therapy, is like really like the lesson we learn is men need therapy.
Yes.
I think, which is something I've
Everyone needs it.
definitely said before. So yeah, that's what I took away from it.
Yes. And I was also thinking, like, there have been times that my friends have dated people that I don't necessarily find attractive, but I don't point that out or feel the need to comment on it because I'm not the one dating them.
Mhm.
So, like, my opinion on that part, like, doesn't matter.
Well, and it's
So,
objective and it's different for
yeah,
everyone. So
exactly.
like attractive to who?
Exactly. So I'm like, let your friend like who they like,
Yeah.
and you find who you like. And
Right.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it shows you how his friend was so deeply insecure that he dragged his friend back in the trenches in a way. He was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care that you're happy. You got to snap out of it because I see this woman as unattractive. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
like see it for what it is. And yeah. And then when he goes to Tony Robbins, is that what we said?
Mm-hmm.
He says that, oh, it's affecting his job. And Tony's like, oh, I wouldn't ever want it to affect his job. But in reality, he like got a promotion.
Yeah.
If anything, Hal's life is much, much better, and his friends still like, no, you gotta
Yeah.
come down to earth and be here with me and my little tail.
My little
Mhm.
tail. That was the most out of pocket thing I feel like for them
It
to
was
add to
really
this movie.
unnecessary. It
I was
was,
like, and
yeah.
not only did they mention it, they were like, let's show it too. Like,
I
okay.
mean, they were going for the shock value.
I also wanted to talk about like the physical gags.
Mm,
There are quite a few.
mm,
Like she breaks a steel chair, or she breaks a whole booth.
hmm.
She jumps into a pool and does a cannonball, and then there's like a child in a tree who was in the pool. Like,
Right. But interestingly, no one seems to give her grief about it. The only thing
mm-hmm.
I really saw was there were two guys after they had their first date, I think it was, and they were like giggling about her or something, but he thought it was directed to him because he didn't realize she was fat, yada
Yeah.
yada. But otherwise, when she was breaking chairs and booths, everyone just seemed concerned for her safety. I didn't like, I was looking out for that too because I put myself in those shoes and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it like that would be so embarrassing, and if anyone said anything on top of it, I would just be so mortified. But um interestingly, there wasn't, I would have thought if you're really going for a dig in this movie, you would have added, I don't know. I thought that was an interesting part to it.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. That's very
Yeah.
true that they don't really comment on it.
I guess they were just going for like unspoken shame of like,
Yeah.
you know, just, oh, well, that's, a fat person for you.
Yeah.
So
That's what they do every day, break booths. I'm like,
and then, from my understanding, there was a body double for a lot of the, because you don't see Gwyneth's face for a lot of it, but you see
yeah.
like a larger woman body. So I think that was a body until she does have a fat suit towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I could only imagine being that in that actress's shoes, knowing that she was going to work every day to be the ugly version
Yeah. I love
of.
that we're on like the same wavelength because I literally did research about the body double, and
Okay.
her name is Ivy Snitzer, I think is how you pronounce it. And yeah, this movie, she said on set, like everyone was very nice and it was okay. It was afterwards when the movie was premiered that
Mhm.
she really started getting like death threats, and then she developed an ED because of it, and she regrets making the movie because she also feels like that movie made fat people feel bad about themselves, and so she she said that she regretted doing it in the first place. So
Yeah. That's awful that she went through
mhm.
that, and I think that shows you the impact that that movie had.
Mhm.
Like, people are like, oh, it's just a funny movie, and it's like, well, it really inspires a lot of strong emotions if the body actress was getting death threats.
Yeah, and
And
they
then,
also sent her diet pills in the mail.
oh geez,
I'm like,
well, and then I read how Gwyneth wore her fat suit around
mhm.
and saw how people just wanted nothing to do with her. So, like,
Yeah.
that was interesting for her to have gotten that perspective, and then also hear how she's, in modern day, how she's doing with potential ED things.
Yes. I think that she herself is like fat phobic, but like I don't know, towards herself, maybe she has like some issues there. But yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, so you had this experience, you saw how fat people were treated differently and badly, and yet you still promote this lifestyle of like drinking bone broth for all like 3 meals, and like that's good enough.
I think
So
it's because people are
yeah.
terrified of being fat, and that's a lot of
Hmm.
where the harassment comes from, is they're terrified or themselves or unhappy with themselves, and lash out at fat people, and hopefully it's okay to refer to fat people. I should ask towards the beginning. As a fat person, I use fat very,
Yeah, same.
okay, liberally.
Yeah.
Some people are uncomfortable with it, so
I was for a while, but I feel like this past year I've been like, yeah, I'm fat. People are very scared
Mhm.
of being fat, and they will go to great lengths to
Mhm.
avoid it. And that's unfortunate because, you know, if we just treated people better, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I've found um some of the most vicious women that leave comments. Mostly it's men, but the women that are so vicious are typically women who have previously been fat and are no longer fat. And it's just a really interesting pattern. I wouldn't want to, speculate what's going on with, and generalize, but it's a pattern and I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of people that like lose a lot of weight, or like whether it's naturally or like with a gastric surgery or whatever. And I've seen even like internet personalities who have lost weight, and they like become super like fat phobic in their content and their comments and
Mhm.
stuff. And I'm like, did you forget that quickly how you
Right.
were treated?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I've never
But
been in that position, so.
right. But I've
Mhm.
heard folks who've had weight fluctuations throughout their life, or people who are now in a different body than they used to be, and talk about the different ways that they were treated in their different
Mhm.
bodies. And it's so I feel like that adds to the mental like health aspect of it. Of if you lost weight or gained weight and then you suddenly are treated differently by society because of the body that you're in, I can only imagine. Like, I've always been fat, so I have no
Yeah,
idea how else it is to be treated
same.
like this. I just assume like everyone hates my guts if they're like not talking to me.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be uncomfortable. I can only imagine how that affects how your brain works, if
Mhm.
you're conditioned like that.
And I think also this movie kind of shows that treatment a little bit, because obviously Hal like sees her as thin in the beginning, and he likes her and is kind to her, and then as soon as like his friend says Shallow Hal needs to find a gal,
Hmm.
and that switches, he's like avoiding her and
Hmm.
making up excuses and just like, yeah.
Right.
So,
But it's like he wants to still be with her but not know that she's fat and not have to see it.
yeah.
So that's really interesting, and I think speaks to having an emotional connection with someone and showing
Mhm.
that it's really you're limiting your options to connect with people if you're going off of what someone looks like,
Mhm.
um, because you found like a really great person inside. That's the whole point of the movie. But then you can also kind of compare how the Thins act, like how all of a sudden his neighbor who wanted nothing to do with him is kind of like, oh, okay, so he's not a shallow person.
Whenever someone leaves me a comment like complimenting like my personality or something that I actually did in a video or
Mhm.
something, that means a lot more than if someone's just like,
Oh.
you're so beautiful. I'm like, thank you, but like, okay. Surface level stuff. So,
Right. And not that dating as a thin person compares to dating as a fat person, but I have heard that very attractive thin people often run into the problem of, I'm so attractive that that's all anyone's interested in, and they don't like bother to get to know the real you. Like, what was you? Like, cry me a
mhm.
river. But also, like, I think we all kind of deal with that in a way, because like
Yeah.
we could be plus size and someone's fetishizing us simply because we have, a bigger body, and then you could run into like they're really not with you for anything of substance. They're just
Mhm.
into your body.
Because there's also like the trope of like a girl can be beautiful, but then if she's like gorgeous, she's stupid, or like
Right.
she has no personality.
Right.
So I could see that for
But
sure.
so, like, at the end of the day, we're all kind of complaining of like, you need to get to know a person for who they are. But those of us who are not conventionally attractive don't get as far in society, because there's, um, with the workplace, if you're plus size, you tend to not make as much money, or maybe don't get as many promotions. And
Mm-hmm.
the world isn't really sized for us. Sometimes we don't fit in chairs that are at the doctor's
Yeah.
office and what have you. There's weight limits to the rides at Disney.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about with the movie, or any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Overall, I think almost anyone can agree the movie was absolutely awful. Maybe entertaining, but definitely makes life worse for marginalized people. Also, let's not forget the Black voices in, body positivity movements. That's where it started. And often white folks, like, myself, sometimes our voices can be louder. Sometimes we have bigger platforms, but it doesn't mean that we started it or that it should be credited to us. So, make sure to uplift and amplify Black voices.
Absolutely. That kind of brings us to like the end with, do you think that this is positive or negative fat representation?
Negative, absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think there's a question.
There's nothing good. If anything, I would say let's support the poor actress that had to endure going through all the nastiness she had to during that time. I look forward to when there's a lot more positive plus size actors and role models.
Is there anything that like you want to plug, like your social medias or any events or anything that you're a part of?
I've got Fly for Ginger, like I mentioned, but also if you're in the Southern California area, I've got Plus Size in SoCal, and we organize events as well as amplify other events in Southern California. That's like LA to San Diego and in between. So if I've got any local plus size babes, it's for femmes and friends. Come hang out in person, or online is good too, and hope to see you there.
Thanks for listening. If you liked the episode, please like, share, rate us 5 stars. You can always follow the podcast on Instagram at bbb.podcast and TikTok at bbb.thepodcast. And you can follow myself on Instagram and TikTok at Carolina Howie. And again, thank you, Victoria, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, stay fat and fabulous. Bye.
Woo! See ya.